As we approach Halloween in 2017, I went ahead and unpacked a few things that reside in boxes most of the year round, and that would be my Virtual Boy collection. One of the things I love doing around this time of year, whenever I have the ability, is to go back and play Jack Brothers. Jack Brothers was actually one of the few Virtual Boy games I had when I was growing up. Had I known how valuable the game would become, I would have never let my copy go. But, as is the case with almost every game I had many years ago, I looked at the short term instead of the long term and parted with almost everything I had as a kid. It's taken me many years to come even close to some of the titles I once had in my collection, but Jack Brothers was one I picked up early on once I got back into collecting, because this game has always had a special place in my heart. Unfortunately, for the purposes of video capture, I decided to emulate these games, and the emulator I chose to make my capture process easiest actually made things a bit of a nightmare. The red color bled a lot, and it looked terrible. So, for the purposes of today's video, I'll be showing everything in black and white format, which should be easier on your eyes. The gameplay is a top-down action game, which has a few puzzles. You play as one of three Jack Brothers: Frost, Lantern, or Skeleton. Yes, that is skeleton, not actually skeleton. It's both in the manual and in the game multiple times. Each character has their strengths and weaknesses, but you can almost think of it as easy, medium, and hard mode, as Skeleton's attacks are powerful, but not ranged projectiles like the other two players. They also have other trade-offs, as you can find in the manual. The game is played using the D-pad to navigate your character through levels of varying complexity, avoiding traps and battling enemies using the A button to attack in the direction you're facing. The R button on the back of the controller uses the special attack for each character, which freezes, damages, or kills the enemies on screen. Utilizing the Virtual Boy controller to its fullest, you can use the right D-pad to shoot in any direction, no matter which direction you're traveling with the left D-pad. Yes, this is from the days before analog sticks, and it was the first system from a major console manufacturer to feature two directional pads, and at the time, few people knew why. Sure, there had been arcade games like Robotron 2084, which used twin-stick controls in the arcade, but little did we all know how much more common having multiple directional inputs on controllers would become. The art style of the game is interesting to say the least. When you look at the box art and the drawings that appear in the instruction manual, you're not expecting these adorable chibi-style, short, pudgy characters to show up in the game. Also, since American audiences knew almost nothing of the Shin Megami Tensei series of games in 1995, it would be years before I realized the type of universe that this game is set in, and as I got older, I would recognize these characters appearing again and again throughout other Atlus properties. But I digress. The characters are cool, but the levels are what catch your eye. They're all themed differently, and often, despite lacking much detail and decoration, they actually tend to match their theme, whether you feel like you're entering a cavern or a religious temple of some kind. The game doesn't do a lot to take advantage of the 3D capabilities of the Virtual Boy, even when your eyes are firmly locked into the console itself. Special attacks can appear to pop out, and the dropping between levels is kind of a neat effect, but mostly you just see the next level below you on the screen the whole time. But it doesn't evoke much more of a sense of depth in true 3D than it does just seeing it here in this 2D video. Where Atlus really seems to knock things out of the park with Jack Brothers is the music. Holy cow, these tunes are well varied and extremely memorable. Taking full advantage of the Virtual Boy's stereo sound, the soundtrack to this game is extremely catchy, but only a tiny handful of songs really do much to set the tone of the game. Very few selections sound eerie or spooky, but instead, most of them are just frantic, which adds to the pressure and the puzzle-solving fun of the game, but doesn't do much for atmosphere. Sound effects could definitely use a bit more variety, but when you consider that Virtual Boy games to most people are looked at as glorified Game Boy games, you can understand that they worked with what they had. Okay, so the game features characters like Jack Lantern and Skeleton, but why else do I play this game every Halloween? The game has an opening cutscene that'll explain that for you, which I will take full screen and adjust the reds for the most enveloping experience. The story can also be found in the manual, and it says mostly the same thing, but provides some different details. Every year on Halloween morning, the portal to the world of fairies opens, allowing a pathway to form between their world and ours. This year, the mischievous Jack brothers from the world of fairies have decided to set off on an adventure in our world. They will have to pass through the portal again by midnight, or be banished from their world forever. The thrill of their adventure takes their mind off the clock, and before they know it, the 11 o'clock hour is upon them. As they start to race through the long pathway to their home, Pixie the fairy appears and offers to show them a shortcut to the world of fairies. The shortcut is dangerous and seldom used, but if they use their regular route, they will not make it back in time. The Jack brothers have no choice but to follow Pixie and choose their battles wisely. They can only hope that it's not too late. At the end of the day, the game is quite a lot of fun, and the challenges never feel wildly unfair. Time gets tight, but with a couple more tries, you can find more efficient ways around the maps, and taking out certain enemies allows you to collect more time to complete the levels. The boss battles are satisfying and rewarding when you complete them, and once again, graphically, outstanding. But this is Halloween, and nobody talks enough about the Virtual Boy, so why not play a little trick and offer you all another treat? Insmouse no Yakata. Yakata? Insmouse? It's a Japanese Virtual Boy game that never officially found its way to the United States. But being the A- level collector for the Virtual Boy that I'd like to consider myself, once I learned about this game, I had to have it. Trying to learn more about it was difficult, as the game is often referred to as Mansion of Insmouse, or in some extremely poor translations, it can be called Insane Mouse Mansion. Luckily, I'm an English major, and I can definitively tell you that if this game had come to the United States, it would have simply been titled Innsmouth Mansion. Why? Because the game is set in the universe of H.P. Lovecraft's story, The Shadow over Innsmouth. Okay, technically it's based on a low-budget short film released in Japan, which was in turn based on Lovecraft's story, but that's neither here nor there. The game doesn't have much to do with the story itself, so it won't spoil anything to give a super brief synopsis of the story. A guy visiting the small Massachusetts town of Innsmouth heard odd rumors of an old man from the town who once discovered a race of fish people. It seemed like an old wives' tale, except that this place was becoming a ghost town as the older people in town keep disappearing. By the end of the story, you find out that the government is investigating the town and that more people are sure to go missing. The townsfolk don't like outsiders, and in particular hate G-men snooping around. But eventually we realize that the narrator is a descendant of the old guy who discovered the fish people, and that he's a fish-human hybrid like most of the people in this town. They'll eventually walk into the sea and live eternally in an underwater city. If that just kind of blew your mind a little bit and you want to actually read the story for yourself, a collection of Lovecraft's work was just released for free on the Kindle store, which you can read from any Amazon Kindle app for free, just yesterday, the day before this video went public on YouTube. I encourage you to download it and check it out. Anyway, we know this game is set in Innsmouth because it's specifically called out in the manual. The game has nothing to do with mice. But that was a long tangent to get to the game itself. You play as sort of a detective, hired to find the mansion on the outskirts of Innsmouth and steal a book from inside. Once you have the book in your possession, monsters come out of the woodwork, and the levels of the mansion mystically rearrange themselves into a labyrinth, trapping you inside. Innsmouth Mansion takes place in the same early 20th century setting as H.P. Lovecraft's books, and so you're equipped with a simple 6-shot revolving pistol, which you have to reload by pressing the L button, and you fire with the R button. You aim your way across the screen by using an aiming reticle which you control with the right D-pad. You move through a 3D space by pressing up to move forward and down to move backwards. Left and right literally turn your character those directions, but you often have to press twice as you'll end up facing a wall when you want to turn around, unless you're turning to head down a hallway. Monsters can burst through walls as they chase you, and enemies do respawn. While playing the game, having never read the instruction manual, I had no idea what the orbs did. Thanks to a translated instruction manual found on the Planet Virtual Boy website found over at planetvb.com, I only later learned that the orbs will reveal the rest of the map and the location of items on the map, such as the key you need to find the exit. I wish I had known that a little bit sooner. As you progress through the game, you can continue by using a password system, and since you'll be continuing a lot, whether it's because you die at the hands of monsters or because you ran out of time before you could find an exit, the password screen automatically fills in the most recent password you unlocked for you. It behaves more like a continue feature than a password system. The 3D effects are kind of cool, in particular certain enemy deaths, and the title screen is one of the best looking images I've ever seen on the Virtual Boy. The intro is simply meant to scare the pants off of you. As with Jack Brothers, I'll capture the intro in widescreen and color correct my red balances for your enjoyment. Again, it was pretty much washed out thanks to the emulator, so I'll stick with black and white, but I had to throw in a little splash of color for this video. Unfortunately, the music leaves a lot to be desired, and the sound effects aren't great, despite the fact that they are at least helpful for playing the game, and often they're able to sort of hint when an enemy is nearby. The sounds don't distinguish between types of creatures attacking you, and every shot of the gun you fire is exactly the same. For the remainder of this episode, I think I'm just going to stick with using Jack Brothers music. The manual is in Japanese, of course, but the Planet Virtual Boy translation basically has a little bit more detail than I gave before, so although I won't read it word for word, instead, I'll put my own creative spin on the text that's there. Happy Halloween! In 1922, in a certain rural town in Massachusetts, there was a forest known as the Forest of the Dead, and even locals didn't go near its outskirts. Our story begins in a mansion hidden deep inside that forest. A man has ventured into the woods and into the mansion on a mission. At last, I found it. The man, exhausted from his trek, was gazing at the dusty book. The man was a humble detective, offered an irresistibly large sum of money if he found this mansion, found this book, and brought it back to his client. Despite being tired from his search, he wondered what kind of book should ever bring such a hefty reward. He wiped the dust from the strange, skin-like leather the book was bound with, and in Greek letters, he deciphered the title of the book to be Necronomicon. The book was inscribed with a warning: beauty, wealth, and honor shall be brought about by the spell. For this reason, many will try to obtain this Book of the Dead, just as butterflies flock to the nectar of flowers. Now I see why they offered such a hefty price tag. But this Book of the Dead stuff? Spooky. I better get an added bonus for this. Lured by his own curiosity, the man opened the book. Suddenly there was a distortion, something entirely inexplicable. Seconds, minutes, or hours could have passed. The man wasn't quite sure. When the man regained his bearings, he realized that the inside of the mansion had drastically changed. It had become a labyrinth-like maze, almost like a Mobius strip. It seemed there was no exit. As he walked through the mansion, a voice that sounded not of this world could be heard throughout the hallways. Then, strange footsteps. Thump, thump, thump. They came closer. The man gripped his revolver and held his breath. It was completely silent. Then suddenly a creature appeared in front of the man. He ran away screaming, for what had appeared in front of him was no doubt an Innsmouth monster, which he had read about in the dark mythology surrounding the town. The man ran as fast as he could, but he was crippled with fear. He was terrified of the monster he had seen, but he had no idea that the mansion existed in a gap between dimensions. When he entered into the mansion, he experienced a headache that showed no sign of stopping. He was dizzy and disoriented, and now that he's been recognized as an outsider not from Innsmouth, he knew he was traveling a dangerous road. Only the dragon key can open the door back to his own reality, but even that barely exists, and time is not on his side. Okay, I took a few creative liberties there. I'm an English major who took a lot of creative writing classes in college. I had to dive into this one. It's not often you get to tinker with H.P. Lovecraft's mythos and make it your own. The gameplay is relatively simplistic, and mostly you try to find your way out of a maze. Your gun is slow and underpowered, and oftentimes finding ammo can be tricky as item placement is random each time you enter a level. But really all you want to do is find the key and then find your way out of each level as quickly as possible. So how do I put a bow on this whole episode? As I said back in the Jack Brothers portion, the game is loosely a part of the Shin Megami Tensei series, a series predicated on a fictional timeline where Tokyo accidentally opened an interdimensional portal where demons become part of our reality, forcing the American government to take action and turn Japan into yet another post-apocalyptic wasteland. It seems likely that 1990's family-friendly Nintendo of America asked that demons be changed to fairies. The Jack Brothers have to get to their dimension of fairies before the portal closes at midnight. Insmouse no Yakata, or Innsmouth Mansion, is loosely part of H.P. Lovecraft's universe, and the fictional town of Innsmouth, where, once again, the government investigates strange, otherworldly creatures, and our protagonist has a limited amount of time to escape from this haunted mansion before his portal closes and his chance to return to our world is gone forever. You may even be surprised to find out both games have multiple endings. In Insmouse no Yakata, you basically just go from room to room, level to level. Throughout Jack Brothers, the Pixie character drops in to offer advice. It's mostly just tips about new enemies appearing on a level, but Pixie helps move the story along in small ways. Although both games are, overall, a little dry in the middle, both have deeper, more expansive universes than any Virtual Boy player likely suspected back in the 90s. And there's a lot to unpack within each game, and reasons to play through each of them multiple times. Each game can be looked at as just a tiny intro to a much deeper universe, whether it's a franchise of video games or a series of classic horror novels. You might even say that both of these games are virtually just our story so far. Hey everybody, thanks for watching episode 55 of Our Story So Far TV. The Virtual Boy doesn't get enough love, so please give this episode a like, subscribe if you want more content, and leave a comment down below. I'm always available for more feedback over on Twitter @NewAngel, that's N-U-A-N-G-E-L. If you're looking for more of my videos and they're not coming up in your recommended feed, you can just go over to ourstorysofar.tv. I like to have new episodes every 2 weeks, so come on back soon. Until next time, take care of yourself.